Hello YouTube, welcome to this next installment of the Avion blog. Today we're going to take a look at something a little bit different. We've received a Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini, or the GT/R9190 I think it is, reporting a charging problem. So what's actually happening is when you plug the phone on charge, this is what's reported by the client. When you plug the phone on charge, it shows the little lightning bolt on the battery. However, the battery doesn't seem to be picking up, so the battery just eventually slowly sort of drops down in voltage and dies. It is also not connecting to the PC via the USB port. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the disassembly of the S4 Mini and try and see if we can diagnose what the problem is with that. Let's get a closer look at the phone. So first thing is first, we need to take a look and test if the reported problem is actually present. So I'm just busy connecting up my charge cable to my test supply over here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug the phone in, and I don't get any sort of indication of charging over there. So yeah, initially the fault detected was that it was showing a charge, but I'm not seeing any indication of charge. And just to verify that the charger is working, we have the little lightning flash, everything working. If we turn the phone off onto standby, plug it in, there you go. So that's working, no problem. We need to try and ascertain why this phone is not switching over to charge. Now, I have manually charged this phone's battery before, just to get a bit of life into the phone so we can try and diagnose. But let's take a look-see at what's going on inside this device. Okay, so once you've pulled the battery off, we've measured the battery voltage basically by connecting to the positive and negative points on the battery, and we're showing 3.734 volts, so everything's fine there. The battery aside, get yourself one of these trays to store the screws. And we've got 10 screws in the back of this device that we need to take out. I'm going to go ahead and do that so that you guys can go look inside the Galaxy S4 Mini. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this because it can be quite a bit boring to watch. Okay, so we got all the screws out. Let's close that storage container and put it out of the way. The next thing you're going to need to get yourself is a spudger. Now, I have various spudger tools at my disposal inside this container over here. So you go ahead and pick the right spudger tool to get inside this device. This is quite a common one for me for poking and prodding around there without shorting anything out. But I do have various spudger tools specifically designed for the purpose of opening these devices. In this case, I think a standard guitar pick type will do the job quite nicely. And if you look closely over here, there is a small line between the front glass and the back over here, right there. So what you need to do is get inside there without damaging anything, obviously. It can be quite tricky at times, but then once you've got the seal open, it goes quite easily. And you go all the way around, just like that, just unclipping. You can do this if you've got a long enough fingernail. Then once we've got it clear, you can basically lift the cover away, put it aside, and we're inside the phone. So the first area that we need to take a look at is the circuit area over here. To see, what we're going to do is we're going to connect power and we're going to trace it through and make sure power is getting in through this connector. That would be the first step. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we can see and make sure that the power that's coming in on the connector is actually reaching the board. So we can tell then if the connector is faulty or if the board is faulty. Okay, so we're going to bring our power connector in, plug it into the device, bring our multimeter on the DC volts. What we're going to do is we're going to come in over here and check, and we've got 5.153 volts reaching the board, and checking the test points. Okay, so it looks like the voltage is reaching the main board. Now, for me to go any further with this repair, I'm going to need to take this device over to the electronics test bench. This is of course the disassembly and quick fix bench. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go across to the electronics bench to start getting a little bit finer to see what the issue is here with this device. Right, so what we need to do here is we've got connectors over here, here, and of course there. So to remove these connectors, you just get a flat spudger tool. I'm not going to remove them all, I'm just going to remove the ones I need to take out the main board. You just basically pop it underneath these, give it a bit of a twist, and these connectors just pop straight off. Right, now just be careful, because oftentimes between this main board and the LCD panel on the front there will be another ribbon cable underneath. So we're going to lift the board out carefully, taking care not to damage these little ribbon cables. Okay, there we go. And if we spin it around, we can see there's that ribbon cable. And pop the spudger underneath there, pop it off, and there we go. We've got the main board loose from the sort of LCD panel and assembly of the device. So I'm going to move that out of the way, and this is what we need to take a look at. Now, if I look at this over here, one would assume that this being the connector from the charge board, that the charging circuitry etc. will be somewhere in this general vicinity over here. So let's go and take a look at that service manual and see what it tells us about this area over here, and see if we can find any obvious problems which could be developing from this. Okay, so here we've got the level 3 repair of the Galaxy S3 in the official service manual. The overview diagram over here doesn't give you much of an information on the power supply section. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down. It does give you an indication of the layout on the board, etc. But we're going to head straight. Okay, it shows you need an oscilloscope, digital multimeter, power supply, ESD safe tweezers, driver, spectrum analyzer. This is more for doing RF stuff, soldering, and checking filters, and then of course a soldering iron. We have all of that. That all works, so I'm not worried about this section of it. Initial failure, no, that's working. Scroll down, no service, service is working. SIM is working. Charging part, okay, TA USB insert. Right. Charging sequence started? No. Reconnect TA or USB. So this immediately tells me that you probably find the USB section of the phone is faulty. But what we're going to do, C315, we're going to check if there is 5 volts there. Just out of interest. Now C315, if you recall what I said to you guys earlier, it's showing it here Now if we open up that image that we captured under the microscope just now, I'm going to show you guys now. Alright, let's go for the closer one. It's a bit dark, but this over here would be C315. Let's just see, we've got an oscillator here. This looks like a Zener diode. So we've got the oscillator, the Zener diode. Now bearing in mind this manual isn't for the exact device. Yep, that would be it there. That would be C315 for sure. And then it's got C335 next to it over there, which isn't populated in this one. And then this over here, if I'm not mistaken, is the charge controller. F300. There it is. Right, so this would be C315. Now if I'm looking at this over here, I would say this would be the ground rail, based on the fact that it looks like it's connected to ground here. I could be mistaken. Let's get a different view. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's connected to ground. So I'm assuming this would be the positive rail over here. So what I'm going to do now is apply power to the board, and I'm going to test at this point over here to see if we're getting 5 volts here or not. I think that would give us a clear indication of whether the USB connector is working or not. And also it will take us back to this over here to see whether we need to replace the USB connector or not. Now this over here looks like the charge controller for the micro USB, but yeah, I don't think we need to look too much. What we're going to do now is we're going to check the C315, which is the 5 volt connection coming in over here, and then possibly as well check this VBAT connector, because I'm assuming this would be the voltage from the battery. So maybe the charge would be put out here, or the battery voltage will be put in here. But we're going to have a look at this section. So C315 and C314. Let's just see where C314 is. There it is up here. So we're going to check these two opposite capacitors on the board, namely this one and this one. And we're going to make sure we've got our voltage present on both of those. And then we'll come back to the computer and take a look and see what we've pretty much set up over here. We're just going to take a closer look at those voltages on those capacitors and see what we can see. Okay, we have 5.21 volts. And nothing on the other one, but that could require battery power to actually show what's going on there. Yeah, we definitely got our 5 volts on our power in, actually 5.21 volts, which is substantially enough. Nothing on the other side. So I'm beginning to think there might be a little bit of an issue with this charge IC over here. Okay, so that kind of negates that. We're actually getting power through from the USB through the device into the main board. So now what we need to try and ascertain is the charge port section of the battery charge unit. We need to have a look-see and see what the story is over there, which could be another bit of an interesting one. So it appears we're getting our voltages coming in on that charge connector, but then there's nothing on that output. But I'm not sure if that's supposed to have anything on it, because it could also be that, sorry, I was just turning up the exposure a little bit, it could also be that that's actually just voltage coming in from the battery. So I need to see if I can find something on the charge circuit over here and see what we can do. But yeah, quite an interesting venture. There's not a whole lot to these. They're kind of like very glorified two-way radios with a lot more microcontroller properties in them. So what I'm going to do is reassemble and just check if there wasn't any loose connections, and then also just try and test that little area over there and see what we find. So let's go ahead and put it back together again and see what happens. First thing we need to do is snap the LCD connector back on. Okay, clips in nicely. Then we just need to move all the connectors out of the way so that the board can, just be very gentle with these things because they can break rather easily. You just need to lift them all so that we can get the board underneath them, like so. Okay, that's it. And just check the LCD connector is still on. It is. So we can basically bring this down and see what's holding it up from locking into place. There we go. We drop. We still got something that's rocking over here. So we need to try and see what that is. It could just be that connector. Let's reassemble. No, there's definitely something holding it up. So let's take a look at that again. Everything looks right there. There's nothing strange. Just let these guys out of the way. Okay, that side's down. This side's not. There we go. Seated. Okay. So then what we do is we just go ahead and we push all these little connectors back into place. Okay. Make sure they're on properly. And that they're locked down. Antenna connector. Okay. So we've got everything back into place. Now what I'm going to do is, before I go and clip everything back together again, I'm going to give the phone a bit of a test boot and just make sure that everything is interfacing. So I'm going to loosely hold the battery in place, and we're going to power on the device. Like so. Okay, just powering up. Okay, battery's flat. I am seeing a lightning bolt now, which I wasn't seeing earlier. I'm not too sure if this has corrected the problem or not, but let's take a look-see. Okay, so what we've done is we've tested the voltage over here between this point and this point here being the ground. We've got our 5 volts as expected. However, without the battery connected, we don't seem to have any voltage over here. Now, I'm not too sure if this input is an input from the battery or if it's an output to charge the battery. The service manual doesn't give us much information about that. So what I'm going to do now is try and trace back from the battery terminals on the device. This could take some time, so I think I'm going to end it off on this episode and move on to a few tool reviews. But watch out in a future episode for the completion of this repair. This has turned out to be one of the more complicated repairs, which is nice. I enjoy a bit of trickery from time to time to try and ascertain what the problem is with these devices. I do believe I should be looking at this area over here as well, which I'm going to have a look at just now. But yeah, let's have a look-see. Now, for now, let's head over to the tool section of this episode. Hey guys, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly so we can see what we all got here. Starting with this relatively cheap set. This is a needle nose pliers and a flush side cutter and a precision screwdriver set. Quite handy for doing the odds and sods here in the workshop. I'm going to be sliding on and off camera here just to get you through this fast. This is nice because it does package up quite nicely. On to the next item we have over here, which is used on and off location, but this one is more for in the workshop. This is a communications tool set, or a crimper per se. This is used for crimping network and telephone cables, stripping the cables, some more screwdrivers, a crony tool, etc. Quite handy for making up your own network cables and such. Be back now. Then, of course, we have various sort of bit sets, screwdrivers, etc. I'm not going to go into screwdrivers because if you watch the review on modification of screwdrivers, you will notice that I do make my own insulated screwdrivers as well as have a large set, but this complements that. Then also down here, on the workbench tool set, we have this little guy over here just for the odd occasion where a socket set or spanner type setup is needed to get something loose. This is basically a little socket set with various sockets, spanner, well, shifting spanner, etc., and some more bits. Like I say, not always used, but sometimes it is required on the workbench, especially when you're like pulling apart an older type transformer or such. Then it really does come into its own. Then some more specialized tools. We have radio trimming tools. These are used for aligning radio chokes, etc., where you could damage them if you used a screwdriver. This Pros kit is an 8-piece screwdriver set, more designed at doing cell phone and tablet repairs, etc. Great for all sorts of little bits and pieces. Very nice to have. Then, if we dig a little bit deeper over here, you will find 3 absolute must-haves on any workbench: a pair of pliers, proper needle nose pliers, and a large side cutter used for cutting thicker wires, etc. I'll be back now. Right, here we have an angle driver, or it's basically a bit set. If you can see that over there, it's a bit set with almost like a driving spanner, so you can put it in at an angle and then drive the screws in and out. Helpful, especially for weird angle stuff. Of course, I'm not going to go into all the installation tapes, etc., that I keep in this toolkit over here, but a couple of rolls of insulation tape is always a must. some various Allen keys, always useful and needed. We got these guys over here, which is your Torx wrenches. Try and get the ones, if you look over there, they're hollow in the center, because you're going to find a lot of devices require that. In fact, even the Leatherman tools require the proper Torx wrenches for opening. I decided to go with this sort of set. I do have the bit set kind as well, but I find them quite useful for what I like to do and the way I work. Then of course, I'm not going to bring them all out. Bunches of screwdrivers, insulated, non-insulated, get as many as you can. They never go to waste. Then, something else, Dave Jones, you beat me here buddy, is a good quality knife on the bench. Not always really needed, I would say, but nice to have for just cutting open a box or whatever the case may be. Like I say, I'm always carrying my Leatherman and my other little Leatherman blades, so not really a have to have, but this one does live here in my toolbox and always available when needed. Then on to some of the heavier stuff. Right, as far as crimping goes, we're talking here, I have the following: your traditional sort of yellow, blue, red crimper, and I have my large sort of industrial type crimper, and then last but not least, the hex type crimper for crimping coax cable, needed for RF, and then a good old water pump pliers, quite a nice decent pair, squeezing stuff, whatever. Yeah, there's always stuff to be used for. Then I have another little precision screwdriver set over here, which is more like a bit set, with all the various bits that go into the precision handle. Not used so often. I do have some little hammers, whatnots over here. One battery screwdriver that I like to make use of on the bench when you want to quickly get into something or get out of it. This makes the job much quicker. Another spare solder sucker. I have two of these at the workbench. Very handy to have. Pair of scissors, normal sort of sharp pair of scissors over here. You know, nothing too fancy, just a pair of scissors. Then we've got one of the very, very important items on any electronics workbench. Can anybody guess what it is? Nope. Stanley knife. I use the craft knife with a break-off point. It's got a bit of a metal bracket. It's a bit of a cheaper one, Chinese Hong Kong stuff. But for what I use it for, it's perfect. Then I also have a set of these, which is craft scalpels. Nice for all sorts, especially in the electronics game. You never know what you want to cut, stab, poke, or whatever the case may be. So let's see what else is out here. Something else that's quite important, especially when working with surface mount devices, is tweezers. I have literally dozens and dozens of tweezers, so I'm not going to show you them all, but these are probably some of the better quality ones. Very crazy small tip on those. Nice for sort of 1mm components and stuff like that. Have to have tweezers, stubby screwdriver, good old Stanley, multiple bits, all stowed inside the handle, good for getting into tight spaces, etc. Then we have some more sort of flush cut pliers. I've got dozens of these in the box over here. I'm not going to show you them all. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in there. There's also another big pair of pliers. There's another needle nose pliers, and oh yes, something else that's quite useful. Not used all the time, but useful. Wire stripper. Nice piece of hardware to have. Yeah, that pretty much covers the basics of that toolkit. I'm not even going to go into what's in all the shelves over here, but also lying here on the bench, there's a few little bits and pieces, quite handy. Yeah, makeup brushes, guys. Makeup brushes, believe it or not, good for dusting out components. Some nice long sort of screwdrivers. A variable bit precision screwdriver. Very, very small jeweler's needle nose pliers. Another flush cut side cutter. And yeah, that's about those. Something else. A lighter for doing heat shrink or whatever else that you'd like to do. On the bench over here, there's a whole bunch of little adjustment tools, trays of regularly used bits and pieces, adapters, whatnot. I'm not going to go into all of those because it totally depends on what you plan on working on, what you'll need. You will find various, which we'll talk about in the soldering tutorial, various solder wicks for desoldering, etc. You'll find various rolls of solder. Geez, I could go on and on and on. But that pretty much covers the basics. One more thing that I'd like to talk to you guys about is this set over here which I've put together. What this is for is most of your modern cell phones and such are such that there's one or two screws and then you kind of have to peel them out. So what this set here is all your various pulley tools, sucky tools, stabby in the corner and pulley-outy screeny tools, whatever you'd like to call them. You know, sort of angled tools for getting into those tight little gaps and wedging stuff out without breaking clips, etc. You know, I'd like to get into the gap of the iPhone to pull the iPhone screen out, which reminds me we are going to be doing an iPad repair, a digitizer replacement pretty soon, so keep watching on another episode. We'll be covering that in quite a bit of detail. So that is most of my hand tools here in the workshop. It's not all of them, there's a whole lot more. We don't need to go into all of them. I do have a battery powered Hitachi drill, electrical powered drill, Dremel, all the usual soldering irons, etc. But one more really cool piece of kit. I'll be right back. Can you guess what it is? Dust blower or compressed air in a can. Very useful for lots of things, from cleaning out computer boards, heatsink, fans, whatever. It's a useful piece of kit to have. So guys, that pretty much covers my hand tools and what we have over here. As you can see, there's not a whole lot. You don't need everything to get a good electronics workshop up and running. There are a few things I haven't really touched on, but at the same time I don't think it's really necessary. In the not too distant future I'll do another episode like this showing you guys my portable Go kit, which contains a clamp multimeter, a secondary electronics multimeter, a plug tester, a whole set of spanners, pliers, screwdrivers, soldering irons. There's 3 soldering irons in there ranging 25 watts, 50 watts, as well as one of these portable guys like this. Solder, pretty much everything's in there, but we'll go through that on another day. So guys, thanks for watching this episode. I hope you guys have a bit of an idea of what sort of tools you may need to acquire to be in the electronics game. But the decision is purely personal. Tools are a very personal thing. You need to kind of get what works for you, not necessarily what works for me. What works for me might not work for you. So get your tool collection growing, and who knows, maybe one day we'll be watching videos about you and your tools. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, take care.